Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 81. Chapter 81. The truth rope. Moving closer to the male fairy who once asked a question, Kevin used his leak skill on him. This confirms it, he's a vampire, Kevin said to himself. Although no one could know that he was a vampire due to them and a wingless fairy looking similar. They were able to hide their pale face, red eyes, and fangs away from others but not from Kevin. He was able to spot him using his scan skill. Now he knew how useful the skill was, compared to when he had to look into the eyes of his opponents before he could see the details about them. As soon as he got to the side of the vampire in disguise as a fairy, Kevin wrapped his arm around his shoulders and whispered into his ears. "Hey buddy, you look so cool when you asked the question, can we be friends, what's your name?" Kevin asked. "What the hell, fuck off bruh," the fairy said as he removed Kevin's arm from his shoulders. Kevin smiled and placed his hands on the guy's shoulders again. "Buddy, I'm not done talking with you. I only requested to be your friend, what's wrong with you? See bruh, if you don't take your hands off my shoulder, I'll drain your motherfucking blood and feed it to the pigs," the fairy replied. "Ah, I see. So you're a vampire," Kevin said. "What? Vampire, what is that?" The fairy laughed as if he knew nothing about vampires. "See, guy. You can't suck my blood because I'm not human. My blood is just a waste to you even if you sink your fangs into my skin," Kevin replied, waiting to see his reaction. He heard from Jerry that some vampires get hungry just by hearing the word, blood. So he decided to try it out and see if it was true. In the books he read about vampires, it was never stated like that. But he came to an assumption that some elves and fairies also feel hungry when the word fruit is mentioned. "What shit, who said I was gonna sink my fangs into that poisonous blood of yours?" the fairy guy blurted out. "So you are a vampire?" Kevin smiled. "I'm not a vampire, stop calling me that," the fairy guy replied with a frown. "But you just confirmed it yourself." The fairy guy grabbed Kevin's arm that was on his shoulders as he tended to twist it, but he felt something warm tied around his neck. He tilted his head slightly to the back and saw a dark lady fairy gazing at him. "Hi, vampire." Jerry flashed an evil smile at him. "Is that the truth spell thing you were talking about?" Kevin asked as he glared at the long but tiny rope that was wrapped around the vampire's neck. "It's just an artifact we use to capture thieves and spies back in the forest. We have lots of these things, you know," Jerry said. "Don't worry, he can't escape, the rope has the power of stopping him from doing anything crazy." That was when they heard the students shouting that vampires aren't real. "That's my mother," Jerry said as she looked to the front and saw Sophia talking with a frown on her face. "Your mother?" Kevin asked. "Yeah, didn't you see her when we came?" "Nope, we came late so I didn't know what happened except that I saw you behind us," he replied. Seeing her standing beside the schoolmaster means that the plan was a success. Jerry had a smile on her face, and forgetting that she had a vampire tied by the throat, she tightened the grip of the rope on his neck and the vampire groaned in pain. "It is painful," the vampire complained. "Then confess to me, are you a vampire or not?" Kevin asked. "I'm not a vampire," the guy said. "You're still being stubborn, right?" Jerry smirked. Suddenly, the rope started glowing green around the vampire's neck and he started shouting in pain. The elves and fairies that were standing beside them could only wonder what was going on. With Kevin's arm around the vampire's neck, no one was able to see the green glowing rope that was used to tie his neck. "I command you to say the truth," Jerry ordered. "Who and what are you?" she asked. "I am Derek, the son of Willows, the vampire duke from the vampire world. I am a vampire by birth. That's why I love this rope, it pulls the truth out of their mouth," Jerry said excitedly. "Can I try asking him a question?" Kevin asked, thinking that it might be a joke. "Yeah sure, he'll say the truth anyway. Do you have a girlfriend? Kevin asked the vampire guy. No, harem wives. 15, including 3 female humans. Whoa. That's a lot of wives you got there, vamp. Do you believe me now? Okay, I believe you. I'll do the questioning now. Derek, why are you here? Why did you come to this world when you're originally from the vampire world? Kevin inquired. We were assigned by the Emperor to spy and send information to the vampire world. How do you do that? This button. The vampire pointed at the third button of his uniform shirt. It is a secret camera that records the voice and video of everything around us. Once the video of a whole day has been recorded, we were required to send the video to the vampire world during nighttime. So each footage gets destroyed before the start of another day. Then we're destroying this footage now. It has our voice and video recorded. Jerry said. Wait, Jerry, let's ask this last question. How many of you are here presently? Kevin asked. There's a lot of us in this world than you think. The Emperor wants us to cause a war and misunderstanding between you guys after he learns that the dark creatures came back to the Light City. So if I am to calculate, the Emperor might be sending over 30 vampires to add to the already existing 22 vampires. Wow, that's a damn lot of vampires, Jerry exclaimed. But at this assembly, we're just 7 in total. 2 are standing at the back and front, while 3 are in the middle, including me. Derek finalized his confession. That's good, but we need a plan to take them out, Jerry said. I think I might have a perfect plan for that. Chapter 82. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 82. Chapter 82. The Shadow Ring. Jerry, among your shadow abilities, you got something like a shadow void or something. It's like an empty dark place in the shadow. Kevin asked. No, none that I know of. The only thing I know about my shadow is the ability to pass through walls and the shadow control. How does the shadow control work? I can use the shadow to do anything I want. I can shape a glove with it, and make dresses with it. It was so much fun when I first discovered it at age 10. It was at the time when I got the trilling I gave you. I was so disappointed in myself back then that I couldn't do anything even though I learned the shadow magic. I couldn't raise a single shadow unless I read the words written in the shadow magic book. The words are a bit longer and weren't as easy as using the shadow freely like this. Jerry said as she lifted Derek's shadow above his feet. Shadow hands had come out from his shadow and had grabbed onto his legs, pulling him to the ground, totally unseeable by anyone. Wow, how did you do that? Kevin clamored. He saw Jerry peering at her hands. I don't know, I just thought of making him sink into the ground and he did, Jerry said. That's it. If you want to use your other shadow skills, you have to think of them. Your shadows work when you think about it, it's just like Lexa's. She thought of creating a shadow portal and it was created with her thought. Kevin concluded. So what you mean right now is that I should think about the shadow to access more skills. Does it works for you that way? Jerry asked. No, mine is a bit difficult. It only unlocks each time I obtain the trilling ring or I level up. How about you try and wish on the ring I gave you? It's a wishing ring anyway. Jerry said. He glanced at the ring that was on his index finger in his right hand. A smile came on Kevin's lips as he saw this information. So he had a shadow ring with him all this while. He had thought it was truly a wishing ring as Jerry said, but he found out that it wasn't true. Jerry, why do you think this ring is a wishing ring? Kevin asked. Oh, that. I wanted to use the shadow skills independently without having to read the whole book passage of the shadow book, so I thought of wishing on the trilling ring. I was quite a little kid back then, so I believed in wishes back then. Yeah, and you still believed it till now? Kevin interrupted. Jerry smiled amusingly and replied softly. Yeah. So, as I was saying, my wish was surprisingly granted at that moment. And I was able to use the shadow control. I realized that I could control shadows by raising mine and other people's shadows, traveling through walls, create shadow domes. Those were all the skills available in the book, and I have them all, not until when I discovered that there are other shadow skills that I'm yet to use. So after my first wish was granted, I decided to wish on more things, like having a castle. We were living inside a wooden-built house in the forest which I really hated. I wished on having a dragon as a pet. I read about it in stories, so don't mind the young me. Dragons are not real. Jerry smiled embarrassingly. They could be real, who knows? Kevin said, recalling that he was midway through getting 30 dragon summoning rings. What happens if he finally gets the 30th ring? He might be able to summon dragons, which is awesome to Kevin. Unfortunately, none of the wishes were granted. So I thought that it might be a person wish granting ring. That's why I said you should think deeply before you wish on the ring. Jerry ended her explanation. Kevin shook his head slightly. Jerry's explanation was great. She did come up with something nice about the ring. But he couldn't help but smile as he remembered that the ring wasn't a wish ring but a shadow ring rather. Why are you laughing? Are you amused by little Jerry's intelligence, huh? Jerry, what if I tell you that little Jerry's thought about the ring was wrong? What do you mean? Elaborate. Jerry requested. What if I tell you that this ring is not a wish ring but a shadow ring? Kevin answered. Jerry sighed softly. She turned her face to her right side and scoffed. Are you kidding me? But that ring granted my wish. How could you say it's not a wish ring? She argued. But the ring only granted you your shadow wish, not other things like the castle wish, or dragon wish, he said. Oh, I guess I'm wrong after all. The owner of the ring is here, so he knows better. Jerry chuckled to herself, trying to hide the fact that she was embarrassed. Not after telling Kevin about her childhood life. Kevin could see that Jerry was blushing with embarrassment and could only muster a smile. Yeah. The shadow ring started disappearing from Kevin's hands and Jerry happened to witness it. Why does the ring always disappear? Jerry asked. I don't know myself. I just activate its powers and it disappears. He replied. How do you activate it? Is it that screen tab that appeared while we were in that strange White House? Yeah, the system. It helped me activate it. Kevin answered. Oh, I see. I can't believe I'm a wife to a powerful person like you. Can you just imagine all these awesome things you have? Lots of people would die to be the Triling you are. They would want to have this system you have. Thanks for the good words, my wife, Kevin said, kissing Jerry on the forehead. A light creature who saw them kissing suddenly called for everyone's attention. Can you see them? They kissed just now. Kevin ignored them and instead checked on the system that was notifying him. The second chap is coming shortly. Chapter 83. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 83. Chapter 83. Shadow skills. If Kevin was to think about clearly about this, it was the same skill that Jerry used on the vampire guy recently. Does it mean that the vampire has been shadow eaten and the MC point has been given to him? Checking his mutant cell point, he was amazed by what he saw. The higher the points of your mutant cells, the stronger will it be able to block any spell or magic. The system had started explaining all of a sudden. Right now, your mutant cell is strong enough to block ordinary attacks like knife stabs and sword stabs. It can block spells from low-level people like Jerry and Lexa. Also, students at mage soldiers levels, their spells can't work on you. Although those are great news, the ones I'll be mentioning now are not. Those at master wizards and witches level in your school can cast spells on you. Your mutant cell won't be strong enough to block them. Your MC needs to be at 1000 points before you could block their attacks. The system said. No worries, I still have 6 more vampires to defeat. Kevin grinned to himself. Prita was still talking at the front, explaining how dangerous the vampires are. The students were frightened by the stories they were hearing from Prita. Even though they wanted her to stop, they couldn't tell her. They wanted to hear more about these mythic creatures. While Prita was talking about vampires, the vampires who are hidden among the students started communicating with each other through an ear pod device that was in their ears. The first vampire standing at the front contacted the ones at the back and the middle, but he noticed that the one at the center wasn't replying. V4, V6, check up on V5, I think something happened to him, he's not giving any response. Vampire 1 said, and the two vampires started moving closer to the center. Because of the large number of students in the assembly, they weren't able to see beyond where they are or perceive the smell of their vampire brother. They had to pass through the midst of lots of students before reaching the center. Kevin was still checking the list of shadow skills that was unlocked by the system. This is just great. Man, I love these new batches of shadow skills. I can feel some positive vibes right now. Kevin claimed excitedly to himself. Since Kevin already knew how the two skills works, he skipped it for the next messages. He still has lots of messages to read from the system, but he chose to read the ones from the shadow first, then maybe after taking care of the vampires, he could check the others. After everything has been checked, Kevin decided to execute his plan. But at that moment, someone had sent him a voice call through the system. How the hell is Lexa able to do this? She's been tampering with the system, or is it the system that's tampering with her? Kevin thought. System, are you the one? Tell me the truth. I'm not going to lie anyway. Lexa seems intelligent, and since she's your favorite girl, I gave a tip on how to communicate with you. So, you're talking with her now and not me? Kevin replied. Come on boy, you're not fun. Your girl is the chatty type. She keeps on telling me stories I never heard before. Yeah, I'm no fun, 'cause I can't tell you stories. Do you know I spent all my days locked inside a forest? How do you want me to socialize with people when I've been an introvert all my life? Okay, sorry. I'll start talking with you. Just answer the call, I think your girl has something important to say. Kevin sighed and clicked on connect. Lexa, Jerry, and Kevin were able to listen to the call at the same time. Kevin, Jerry, can you hear me? It's me, Lexa. Kevin heard the voice in his mind. It was awesome how the system was able to create something like this. To be able to connect without having to worry about having a communicating device like a mobile phone or walkie-talkie. Yeah, we can hear you, Lexa. Kevin turned to look at Jerry and saw that she was also hearing the same voice he was hearing. I can see two strange males moving towards you guys. They look strange and unfit to be a male fairies. One is coming from the right and another from your left side. Lexa informed them. Is that so? Thank you, Lexa, we'll deal with them, Kevin replied. Are you sure? I can offer a hand if you want. Don't worry Lexa, just give us an eye on whoever approaches us, okay? I love you. I love you too, Lexa replied, and the call ended. Time for action baby girl. Kevin winked at Jerry, who nodded in agreement. I'll take care of the one on the left side. Use your shadow eater to get rid of the one on the right side. Kevin ordered. Shadow eater. Yeah, that's the name of the shadow you used on the previous vampire. We need to get rid of them quickly before any one of them could send the footage of the video to the vampire world. Since they don't know what happened to their vampire friend, it will be easier to get rid of them without raising suspicions. Kevin replied. Okay, let's do this. Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 84. Chapter 84. Shadow Eater. The two students had gone on two different sides, making sure to act normal while the vampires passed by. Then from behind, they could use stealth mode to capture them. From where Kevin stood, he spotted the vampire coming, so he acted like he was listening to what was being said at the front while the vampire passed by him. Just as the vampire walked past him, Kevin activated his Shadow Eater on the vampire and he was drawn into the shadow realm by the shadow hands emerging from the ground. The light and dark students who saw this shrieked out with fear. The assembly was dissipated and each was wondering what was happening. V3, V5, do you copy? What's happening? V1 said. Leader, I can't reach V3, I think something happened to him like V4, V5 said. V5, I need you to find out what's happening. V6, V7, give him a backup now. I need you to report to the vampire world before anything happens to you. And if you manage to see who the goddamn person is, report to me first. V1 ordered. Yes sir, they all replied. What's wrong with you guys? Why are you running away? Are you scared of the stories I'm telling you? Prita asked, seeing that one part of the assembled students had run to the back, while another part was wondering what was happening. I don't get it, why are they like this? Adam said. Perhaps you should bring out the goddamn teleporters and let's get out of here, Sophia said, but then she spotted her daughter Jerry amidst the calm students. But the look on Jerry's face was suspicious to Sophia. What in the name is she up to now? She wondered. Jerry could see that the vampire was fidgeting with fear and was hesitant on moving away from his spot. What amused Jerry was when she saw him clasp the shoulders of a dark female fairy and started talking romantically to her. But while doing this, he was being vigilant of his surrounding. What the hell, this guy is driving me nuts. Jerry scoffed. I'm not sure if this Shadow Eater skill will swallow him alone. I don't want to hurt the poor girl. But Jerry had no choice, she had to do it somehow. She strode towards the vampire and grabbed his hands, snatching them away from the girl's shoulders. What do you think you're doing with my sister? Jerry said. The fairy girl turned to look at who was spoiling her fun and saw that it was their leader's daughter. Jerry. She called out while Jerry separated her from the vampire. The vampire guy smiled sinisterly. What? Who do you think you are? What if she's your sister? He asked. V5, what are you doing? Cut it out. A vampire who was watching him secretly from behind said to him. Can't you see? You are a light creature and we are dark, we are different from each other, we cannot come together. Or are you blind? How dare you call me blind, you crazy bitch? The vampire said, but before he could do anything, shadow hands reached out for him and he was drawn to the ground. No, the two vampires who had been watching him shouted in terror. Once again the students who had been calm the whole time but had witnessed what happened to the light creature had immediately run. Aha, Jerry exclaimed as he saw the two vampires approach her. Diana, stay behind me, I'll protect you, Jerry said to the dark fairy girl. The teacher standing on the podium could now see what was happening as all the students ran away from the four students. Adam, Sophia, Prita, and a few other teachers were wondering what caused the fight. Lena, who had been in her office the whole time, having a quick nap, suddenly heard the banging of her door. Upon opening the door, one of the vampires decided to charge at Jerry, but he discovered that something was pulling his legs. Not only him but the other vampire was also pulled by the shadow hands. What the hell is this? V7 said in terror. V7, what is going on? Can't you talk? V1 asked, still amid a multitude of students. If not because they were fairies and he could be captured, he would have broken the arms of these students and found his way to the front. The two vampires were taken down into the shadow realm, and appearing behind them was Lexa. Hey! Lexa smiled at Jerry. You can do that too, she replied, and Lexa raised her shoulders in answer. Lena was surprised to see Lexa use shadow magic. Not only Lena but every other teacher was surprised on seeing a light creature learn shadow magic. How was she able to learn the magic? One of the teachers asked. Do you notice that the dark fairy lady also has that magic? She must be really strong. She's my daughter. She spent 8 years learning that magic, and now she's a master. Sophia replied. One of the teachers suddenly walked closer to Sophia and pointed his hands at her. I saw your daughter kill an innocent light male fairy, what do you have to say to that? It's you again, fading memories, Sophia said. Can't you see that a light fairy is the one in a real problem right now? She did not just kill 2 light fairies but also have shadow magic which is forbidden for light creatures to learn. By the way, what's the name of the light fairy girl? Adam asked. Sighs. She's Lexa, my blood sister, Lena replied as she climbed down the platform to address her sister. What? The girl is the daughter of the former fairy leader. The 2 fairies noticed that they have been surrounded by soldiers. What do we do, Jerry? Lexa asked through the ongoing voice call that was yet to be disconnected. Let's ask our husband and hear what he wants us to do. Kevin. Are you all right? Can you hear us? Lexa inquired. Thanks for the support, guys. It's the last day of the month. Chapter 85. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 85. Chapter 85. Exposed vampire. Kevin glared around him. He didn't seem to have a trace of the vampires anymore. After the students collided with each other, the formation had changed and Get had to look for them among the crowd was. He used his spiritual eyes to spot any difference in aura, but for the past 5 minutes, he's yet to spot them. Not until Lexa started communicating with Kevin through the voice call connection. Hey, are you alright? Lexa inquired. Yes, I am. Are you guys good over there? I see you're doing a good job over there. We're not really good here, we are being surrounded by the Academy soldiers. What do we do, escape or stay loyal? Lexa asked. I suggest you should stay loyal, you wouldn't want to be added to the blacklist of the school or accused for killing and escaping from the school. Just tell them that the vampires offended you guys. Don't reveal who they are. Find a similar lie you will tell them so they will believe that you too are saying the truth. Kevin answered. Okay, Kevin. But what about you? What are you up to? Lexa asked. I'm busy hunting right now. I think I may succeed in the hunt soon. I'll come for my wives when I'm done, he replied. Okay, stay safe, husband. The 2 girls said, and the line disconnected. With the idea of where his wives were, Kevin knew the vampires would want to have a video coverage of the faces of the girls. The girls that killed their comrades. He made his way to the front because he knew that was probably where the 2 vampires will be. Multiple teleporters were placed in front of the girls while the girls sat on the ground, just at the back of it. Their hands has been tied with some kind of metal, preventing them from using their magics or spells. Adam stood in front of the teleporter and announced for the students to start coming in a group of 20. But instead of 20, about 50 students had started rushing towards the teleporter. Come on, you're more than 20. Some of you should go back. Adam said, but the students did not heed to his words. What the hell is wrong with these students today? He said, removing the eyeglasses he had on. Kevin could see it. The students were acting against their wish. They were controlled by a spell. When Kevin looked towards one of the vampires, he saw his eyes closed with his hands doing some crazy signs. What are these vampires trying to do? Kevin wondered. He checked up on the second vampire who was also standing in the front, but surprisingly, he was nowhere to be found. Are you guys kidding me or what? Kevin muttered to himself. He used his spiritual eyes and saw someone with a purple aura moving towards Lexa and Jerry. No doubt, it was a vampire's aura. But there was one thing about the aura. When he first saw the aura, it appeared as green, but the system gave him an option which says clearer view, and he saw that the aura was actually purple and not green. Although the vampire was able to hide his true aura from people, he wasn't able to hide it from a Triling. Kevin opened his eyes and saw that the vampire in physical form was invisible to everyone. So this was their plan. To eliminate my wives, HUH.do you think I'm gonna let you? The vampire used the students as a distraction to make V1 turn invisible without anyone suspecting. Kevin stepped back from where he was, a little bit, and stooped to the ground. Using the Shadow Eater on the guy who was casting the spell, he was swallowed up and the spell had immediately stopped. The students had once again shrieked as they saw another student disappear into the ground. Who the hell is using shadow magic to kill people? Reveal yourself at this moment. Adam demanded. He knew that with the chain that was in the hands of the two girls, they won't be able to use any of their magics. So it might be that there's someone else using that magic that they are yet to capture. Sir, the person is standing right here. Jerry said, and Adam tilted his heads backwards. Now everyone could see the vampire standing in front of Lexa and Jerry with a dagger in his hands. With the spell broken, he no longer appeared invisible. He was no longer in a fairy disguise but as a real vampire. His eyes were red and skin was pale, and he wore a black cloak on top of his black attire. A vampire! The students yelled more than before. The academy soldiers had rushed in to face the vampire that emerged all of a sudden. Lift your hands above your head, vampire. Do as you were told now, one of the soldiers shouted. It's all your fault. The vampire shouted at the two fairies. I'll make sure you pay for the death of my brothers with your life. The vampire lifted his hands into the sky and bats from all corners of the world started hovering and flying above him. Darkness had started creeping in and fear was being struck into the hearts of the students. It seemed like all the stories they heard about vampires were becoming true. Some had started throwing up while others shivered with fear of what might happen next. No, 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 don't suck my blood, please. I hate bats and darkness. I made a wrong wish, I don't want to be a vampire anymore. Time for me to have my revenge. The vampire smiled devilishly. Mr. Vampire, I order you to not move. I'll blow your head up if you move once again. The soldier suspected to be the captain of the team said. This was not the first time he'll be seeing a vampire. But seeing them reminds him of the death of his family. Recalling the incident that happened 2 years ago, the captain got angry and shoot his shot at the vampire. F***CKU. Chapter 86. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 86. Chapter 86. Target acquired. The sound of the gun was heard. Everyone had expected to see someone fall to the ground, but unfortunately, none of that happened. The bullet, as it touched the vampire's body, started falling to the ground. The bullets weren't able to penetrate the skin of the vampire. It was as if his body was immune to the bullet attacks. What? Everyone flung their mouths open in fright at what they just saw. Is that possible? For a vampire to be unharmed by a bullet? One of the students said. That's just one bullet, how about multiple bullets? More soldiers had arrived from all corners. All students should stay back, soldiers get ready to fire. A fat soldier who appears to be the head general of all the academy soldiers had gotten a call about the vampire spy, and they used the teleporter linking to the teleporter that was placed in front of the vampire, to appear in the academy. They saw the vampire spy but failed to realize that Jerry and Lexa were behind the vampire. No. There are students behind the vampire. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. The teachers shouted for the soldiers but they couldn't hear. Fire. The fat soldier ordered and the soldiers started shooting at the vampire. No. My daughter. Sophia said as she attempted to rescue her daughter. But the teachers had to stop her so she won't be hit by the stray bullets. At the very moment when the soldiers started firing at the vampire, a bolt of lightning suddenly appeared from the sky and landed where the girls were squatting at. Suddenly Sophia and the teachers couldn't see the girls anymore, but they saw the lightning appear at the place where the other students stood. The teachers heaved a sigh of relief as they saw that the girls were rescued by a fellow student. Hello, wives. Kevin said as he landed in front of all the other students with the girls. Kevin. The girls exclaimed and hugged Kevin tightly. I thought you were going to abandon us, Lexa said amid tears. We were so scared, Jerry said. I know. I'm sorry I was late. But there's something else we need to take care of. Kevin replied. I tried using my Shadow Eater on the vampire, but it seems like he's too strong for me. That's why I need your help. We need to use the Shadow Eater on him to take him down. The last time Kevin used his reveal skill on the vampire, what he saw surprised him. Although the vampire was strong and he have impressive skills that anyone could ever wish for, still he has his weaknesses. But he knew these weaknesses are not going to hurt him since he had an impenetrable body. All except one. He may be able to use his impenetrable body to stop his body from being burnt by the sun or fire magic, but he can't stop himself from being pulled into the ground by the Shadow Eater. Kevin had tried using his Shadow Eater on him, but the system said he was still weak to defeat someone like a vampire knight. He needed help from other shadow users to take the vampire down. That's why he called for the fairy's help. I'm in, Jerry said. Me too, Lexa answered. Then let's get rid of the vampire, Kevin said, but the girls showed their hands to him. Their hands were still being tied up by the no-magic chain and there was no soldier available to release them. What do we do? Lexa asked. Don't worry, I'll find a way to free you from this chain, Kevin said as he placed his hands and tried to break the chain, but it was no use. At that very second, the system notified him. I know, just tell me how to free them. Kevin frowned. Yes, of course, Kevin said with a grin, and the system beeped in approval. Suddenly, the silver chains that were binding their hands were removed and the girls were free to use their magic once again. How did you do it, Kevin? Lexa asked excitedly. The computer thing helped me, Kevin replied. You mean the system? Jerry said. Kevin was speechless. It seems like the system was doing a great job telling his wives what he is. Okay, let's get to the action, Kevin announced and the girls agreed. He made the two girls stand at the front while he stood behind them so no one will know that he also have shadow magic. Questions will arrive on how he was able to learn the magic if any of the teachers happen to know. He's not yet ready to reveal that he's a Trilling to the public. He needed to find all the Trilling rings first. Kevin pointed his hands forward and so did the girls. Their shadows and that of the soldiers started spreading all over the floor until they reached where the vampire was standing. A shadow hand emerged out of the ground and started pulling onto the vampire's feet. What? The vampire said as he turned his gaze towards his feet and saw the shadow pulling him into the ground. No. Leave me alone. The vampire yelled, but he was being pulled deeper and deeper into the ground by the shadows until he was no more seen. Yay! The girls exclaimed as the vampire was finally defeated. Everyone looked toward the girls and saw that their hands were freed from the binding chains. Soon after, the students that stood behind the girls started applauding and cheering them for defeating the vampires. The dark and light creatures saved the day. Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 87. Chapter 87. Where the students were all teleported to the new school, including Kevin and the girls. As for the students and soldiers that died during the incident of the Bloodstone, they were given a mass burial. The corpse of those belonging to affluent families was given a separate burial. The news of the vampire invasion was announced on the news for everyone to be cautious and vigilant. It was also announced that the dark and light creatures will be living together as one. Many people didn't support this, but they had no choice. The king has given his orders and they can't be changed. Although the king was in his bed wondering why he agreed on something like that. He recalled that his mouth was saying the words but his mind wasn't saying the same thing. He wanted to change the orders but he couldn't anymore. Not after he saw the threat of the invading vampires. This wasn't the time to discriminate. It was certain that a war would happen soon. The Bloodstone has been stolen and if they are not careful, everyone will be killed by the spells of the Bloodstone. They needed everyone if they want to win this war. Adam, what do you think will happen if the vampires start a full war with us? We killed their men, they won't just sit idly and let us go scot-free. We need a plan on how to defend ourselves from them and the Bloodstone. As you know, the vampires with their blood abilities are strong enough to wipe us all out. The Bloodstone that we had with us all these years prevented them from using their blood abilities, but now they have the Bloodstone, they will start having their blood abilities back. We need to defend ourselves at all costs. The king lamented to the schoolmaster in his throne room. Your Imperial Highness, I once doubted your decision on letting the dark creatures live with us, but after realizing that there are lots of things we have abandoned from the past, I no longer doubt your command. The new school, which used to be the school of our ancestors, has a magical barrier that could prevent any spells and magic from entering the land. It was specially made for the evil spells of the Bloodstone, but we've been ignorant about this idea for a few years now. Adam said. So you mean my decision on making both creatures come together was a good one? The king asked. Yes, your highness. If we manage to create a duplicate of the magical barrier for the whole city, we would have a chance to win against the vampires when the year starts. Adam replied. Okay, but I'm more bothered by something else. What about the legendary hero, the Trilling person that was said would fight against vampires and conquer all enemies? Do you believe it, or it's just a myth? The king inquired, since he never saw one before. Not all of the elves of fairies saw one before. Only the older ones managed to see a Trilling while they were still young. Although, at that time, they were so young and could barely recall the image of how the Trilling looked like. But they were able to see drawn images and read stories about them. The story was passed down from generation to generation, but as years passed by, no one believed it could be real and saw it as a mere myth. I can't say, your highness. I never saw one before, but prophecies say that a Trilling can appear before or during the upcoming war. Adam explained. I hope I don't die before that time. The king laughed, and it was time for Adam to return to the new school. One of the palace guards escorted Adam outside to operate the teleporter for him, and after Adam had gone through the portal, the guard pressed his hands on the button of his shirt and then returned to the throne room. Inside the dark castle was seated a huge man on his throne. He had a newspaper in his hands with information about the human world displayed on it. He had a grin on his face as he read through the pages of the paper. He was enjoying his reading till a vampire suddenly entered the throne room. What is it? The emperor's voice echoed through the room. Emperor, we received a report that 7 of our vampire spies have been killed. The young vampire announced. What? The emperor shouted. It was reported that some students used their shadow magic to defeat them. The students include dark and light fairy ladies. Have we become so weak that mere fairies were able to defeat our men? I guess I've been so kind to these people. They are a pain in our ass anyway. Destroying them doesn't mean anything to me. Prepare for attack. The emperor announced, but the vampire who was reporting to him stopped the order. There's a problem, Emperor. The students have been transferred to another school, and in that school, it will be difficult for us to enter. Not even our spies can enter the school, or they will be dead within seconds. Why? Is there a sun in that school of what? The emperor asked. No, the school was created by the fairy ancestors with magics and spells greater than being scorched by the sun. No other creatures apart from the fairies and elves will be able to enter the land. I think you should reconsider the order and let's focus on invading the human world first. Most of our men are in the human world. If a war starts between us and the fairies, there's a possibility that we'll lose. I'll suggest we come back for them later. The vampire said. It seems like you're right. Tell me more about the report that was sent. I want to know more about those fairy girls. Perhaps we could blood and turn them into vampires. Happy New Month, everyone. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 88. Chapter 88. Unread letter. It was nighttime and everyone was settling into their new school. A lot of things changed as soon as they got to the school. The boys had their one separate dorm building, while the girls also have their dorm building. Both buildings stood opposite each other, and on top of the buildings were flattened roofs where the students could stay and watch the whole city. After Kevin was done moving his few clothes to the new dorm room, he went to the roof to have a view of the city. There are other students with him, but they were only boys. Females weren't allowed to come to the boys' dorm room, and males aren't allowed to go to the females' dorm room, unlike before. Another different thing was that the newbie students and the mage soldiers students were in the same dorm room, but each was now classified as Class A, B, and C. Class A renamed for newbies like Kevin, while the mage soldiers were renamed to Class B, and the pure mage and spell wizard students were now renamed Class C. It was also announced that 3 stages of tests will be held for all classes in the next few weeks to determine those who would be going to the human world. Kevin's wife, especially Lexa, was being interrogated by the teachers on how she was able to learn 2 magics. It was sure that those 2 will be taken to the human world even if they don't pass the tests. They had famous and affluent parents, and with the 2 magics they had, which was rare, they would very much choose them as the first candidates. Unlike Kevin, who has no affluent parents. At least to his idea. He stood by the roof of the dorm building as he stared at the beautiful city with electricity on every corner of the city. Although it was getting cold as it was the first snowfall, most of the students are outside watching as the white snows fall from the sky. It was a lovely sight to behold. Far from where the other students stood, having fun with each other, Kevin was reading from the 2 letters that were in his hands. He wanted to check out the system messages, but he had something he needed to check out first. He saw a letter in the pocket of his uniform while he was arranging his stuff, and it stated that it was sent from Lena, who was Lexa's sister. Kevin recalled the day that Lena put the letter in his pockets, but he never read it since that day. He opened the envelope and the letter read thus: "I know this may seem crazy, but it's not. I heard about your story from my teacher, who was a wizard. He raised you as his son while in the forest, but he's not your real father. It was all complicated. But if you happen to read this letter and need more explanation, you can come over to my office. I'll help you bring the wizard to my office. And, sorry about the charm I used on you back then. I was out of my mind for a while. So, I'll be waiting. When you're ready, you can come to meet. You deserve to know the truth." And thus the words of the letter ended. Kevin sighed softly as he opened it to read the second letter. The date was written, signifying that it was sent to him today. "Hi, Kev. I'm so sorry, I'm just messaging you now. I need to tell you the truth about your parents before you leave for the human world. Meet me at Lena's new office if you get the letter. I'll be waiting." The letter ended, but Kevin had a deep frown on his face. "Who said I wanted to go to the human world?" he grinned as he tore the letters into pieces. He panted heavily as he thought about the words of the letter. Although he had torn the letter, the words were still ringing in his mind. While he was thinking about the details of the letter, he noticed that the system was silent and didn't say anything. He wondered why he was silent, so he decided to ask the system questions and obtain a quick answer from him, instead of meeting with the wizard. He does not understand why he didn't feel like meeting with the wizard. It was probably because he was ashamed of himself after running away from his home in the forest and for stealing the wizard's gemstones. He had thoughts that this might be a setup to drag him back to the forest only to be scorned or punished afterward. But something reminded him that he had a system and 2 magics. He should be able to defend himself from any beating if it comes to that. "System, you once said you know something about my parents. What are they like? I'm not saying you should tell me everything about them, just tell me a few things you know about them," Kevin demanded. "Kevin, I don't think that will be possible. You're on your way to meet someone who offered to tell you about your parents. I'm sorry, but I can't tell you anything for now. Not after you meet the wizard and listen to whatever he wants to tell you," the system said frankly. "Okay, whatever," he replied as he finally decided to meet the wizard. As planned, if anything bad was to happen, or it was a setup to take him back to the forest, he would have to fight and defend himself at all costs. With his breath held in, Kevin finally left for Lena's office. But on his way to the office, coincidence made him meet Lexa on the way. "Hey Husby, where are you going?" Lexa suddenly appeared in front of Kevin. It was unexpected and sudden that Kevin had jumped a few steps backward. "Bnoel.m, Lexa, what are you doing out here?" he asked, but then he remembered that the girls had become famous overnight and were now a celebrity. He immediately changed his question. "I mean, did they just release you?" "My sister and I had some issues, so we just sorted everything out." But she couldn't believe the fact that I was able to learn 2 abilities. "Here, I got the singlet you asked for and, also, Jerry got the trilling book for you." Where's she?" he asked. "She said she's a kind of busy 'cause she have some matters to take care of tonight. So she gave me the book as a completion of her quest." Lexa presented a huge book to Kevin. It was large and heavy and it had on the front page, written, "The hero of all magical and non-magical creatures." "Wow, what a big book it is," Kevin commented as he received the book from Lexa and glanced at its pages. "How was Jerry able to get the book?" Kevin asked. Lexa said as she whispered into Kevin's ears. "I helped Jerry out. The trilling book that they had was given to my sister for keeping, so I stole it from my sister, Lena. She didn't know and would kill me if she knows." "Do you like the singlet?" Lexa asked and Kevin took a look at the singlet that was in his hands. "Not bad. I had to complete the quests you gave me since you needed the singlet badly. I risked my life to get the singlet for you." Kevin smiled amusingly. "What?" Lexa asked. "Is it funny?" Kevin placed his right hand on Lexa's shoulder and brought his face near hers. "Are you sure you completed the quest because I said I wanted the singlet badly?" he asked teasingly. "Why are you asking? Why else would I have completed the quest if it wasn't because I wanted to help you?" Kevin shook his head slightly and pouted his mouth forward before sucking it in. "What if you did it because of the rewards I promised you? I know you want us to continue from where we stopped." Lexa's eyes fluttered widely as she heard Kevin's words. Each of his words was hitting her like a falling rain and no matter what she did, she couldn't dodge it. She instantly blushed as she thought about herself kissing Kevin once again. She held on to her cheeks to hide the redness away from Kevin. "Shit, he's so hot. But why do I keep on blushing? Come on Lexa, get a hold of yourself. Think about something you hate. Like my sister." Lexa said within her. After her blushing cooled down a bit, she faced Kevin who was now glancing through the pages of the trilling book. He noticed that some parts of the book were blank. "Why are these pages blank?" he asked. "That's how it has been. I think that's where the story ended." Although Lexa concluded that it was the end of the story, Kevin had a feeling that there are words written on the blank pages that aren't visible to the public or just anyone. He used his spiritual eyes but he still wasn't able to see anything. "Well, I guess I'll be checking it out later," Kevin said as he closed the book and kept it by his armpit. "So, where are you going?" the fairy girl asked. Kevin stuttered before answering. He was not sure if telling her was okay. But since she was his wife and the only person he trusted the most at the moment, he had to tell her. "I received a letter from someone saying he wanted to meet at your sister's office. I'm on my way to the office till I met you. I think I should get going now." "What?" "Guys, I want to say thank you for how you supported me last month. This is a new month and you all have been supportive in terms of golden tickets, power stones, and chapter unlocking. Soon, I'll be gifting my top supporters with coins. Thanks a lot for reading." Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 89 Chapter 89. "The wizard, if you're going to my sister's office, you're not taking that book or singlet along," Lexa said. "And second, I'm not letting you go to my sister's office alone. I don't trust her when it comes to males, so I'm following you. Lexa's arms were crossed as she grinned at Kevin, waiting to hear his next words. Is that all? Kevin asked, which surprised Lexa greatly. If that's what you want, then no problem. You're my wife after all. For real. We're going to her office together, she said. I'll just keep this away then. Kevin activated his shadow void skill. The shadow wrapped around the book and singlet, and then it disappeared out of view. Where did you put it? Lexa asked. In an empty space in the shadows, he answered. Will you be able to get them back? Do you remember that shadow eater? Lexa was immediately interrupted before she could finish her statement. See, as Kevin said this, the trilling book and singlet appeared in his hands once again. He made them disappear again and still brought them back. You don't have to be afraid, Shadow Void is not like the Shadow Eater that swallows up vampires and never releases them again. He replied. Oh, okay. Shadow Void. What a nice name it have. Did you came up with the name? Kevin shook his head negatively as a reply. It's the system. After everything has been taken care of, the two students proceeded into Lena's office. Although, Kevin knew what and who he's to meet in the office, Lexa knew nothing. She was curious on who called for Kevin. And with all her thoughts of who the person might be, the only person she could think of was her sister. It might be her sister that sent the letter as a trick to get Kevin come Ivory to her office. But Lexa is going to stop that. That's why she's staying beside Kevin and holding him so tightly. Lena's office was on the right side after entering the library. So the students entered the library and approached the door of her staff room. Knock knock, they knocked on the door of the office and it was automatically opened for them, in which the two students entered into the office. As soon as they entered the room, they could see someone seating beside a desk, busy writing and filling some forms. Lena was more busier than ever as her role was shifted from the position of a doctor to a librarian all of a sudden. Although no one knew the reason, Lexa knew the reason. Sophia of the Dark Creatures do not want Lena using her beauty charm on the dark creatures that comes to receive treatment from her, so she made her become a librarian instead of a doctor. Lena couldn't complain and didn't complain because she knew it was just for a little time. She was waiting till the students are selected to travel to the human world, then she can go together with them and become a human teacher once she gets there. Her father won't let her go on a free will, and this is the only opportunity she had left, so now is definitely not the time to complain, otherwise, her father will stop her from being a staff of the school and she would be stuck at home, doing nothing, absolutely nothing. Hey Kevin, it's been a long time since I last saw you, how are you doing? Lena flashed a smile at him and turned her gaze towards Lexa, who was holding Kevin's hands tightly. She had a frown on her face as she saw this. And, Lexa, what are you doing here? I thought you just left my office now. She asked. Before Lexa could answer her sister, Kevin had interrupted them. Lexa is with me, she's my girlfriend. Kevin said, and Lexa had her mouth opened in surprise. She didn't know Kevin would be so generous to say something like that. She had thought that he would still be shy to tell anyone that they are together, but he surprised her greatly. What? Lena muttered within herself. Kevin's word came as a shock to her that she didn't believe it could be true. But she didn't want to show that she was worried about the matter, so she just laughed it off. Oh, I didn't know you're dating my sister. And she didn't tell me about it. You guys look good together. Thanks. Was the reply Lexa gave her, and then Lena decided to shut her mouth. Lena. I received a letter saying I should come over to your office. Is the wizard here? Kevin asked. Suddenly someone had entered through the door from behind Kevin. It's been a long time, Kev. The wizard said as he flashed a heartwarming smile at Kevin. In his hand was a long black-colored staff. Kevin didn't know why, he suddenly felt the urge to hug the wizard. He hugged the wizard tightly, but as he was doing this, something was talking in his mind and asking if he was in his right senses. What if the wizard uses a spell to take him away? He suddenly backed away and stood a few distance away from the wizard. Who's the old man? Lexa whispered to her sister, but Lena decided not to answer her question. How have you been, Kevin? The wizard asked. I'm fine. For now, he answered, trying not to be free with the wizard since he was not his real father. What's wrong with you? Why are you acting this way? You seem hostile towards me somehow. The wizard challenged him. I'm just worried. Who are my real parents? I want to know who my mother and father are. Kevin immediately requested without holding any words back. The wizard was greatly marveled as he heard this. He glanced at the kid using his spiritual eyes. From the last time he saw him, his aura wasn't glowing as bright as this, but now it was glowing more brightly than before. Not only did this kid got wiser, he has also become stronger. A woman had then entered the room. Thanks for reading. Finally, Kevin is going to meet his long-lost mother. Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 90. Chapter 90. Queen Evelyn, I know you're not my father. Who are my real parents? Kevin asked. Kevin, I need you to calm down. Everything will be sorted out. I just need you to hear me out and listen to what I have to say, the wizard said. I'll explain everything to you, just sit down. Kevin, please sit. Lena also said. Kevin heaved heavily and sat on one of the seats that were in Lena's office. The wizard then walked towards the door to call in someone. A middle-aged lady had entered. She had a veil over her head, preventing anyone from seeing her face or knowing who she is. She was presented to sit down opposite where Kevin was seated. Lexa sat beside Kevin while the wizard sat close to the lady that just entered. He cleared his throat and started speaking. You wanted to know who your real parents are, right? I'll tell you everything you want to know. The wizard said. I used to be the palace wizard who performed sorcery and magic for the royal families because of their inability to use magic. But I was also a close friend to the father of your mother. He was a good man who loves his family and wouldn't want them to fall into danger, and I respect him for that. He told me that his daughter was having an affair with a human. And what was worse was that his daughter was pregnant for him. They couldn't terminate the pregnancy, so he had no choice but to allow his daughter to give birth to the child. If the outcome favors them, then there will be no problem, but if otherwise, the rightful thing will need to be done at the rightful time. Finally, the day of birth of the child came and the mother successfully gave birth to a son, but unfortunately, the child was human and not an elf. Everyone had thought that at least if the mother gives birth, the child might turn out to be an elf, but it was all wrong. They had no choice but to banish the child from the elf land. If word goes out that a human child was given birth to, in the elf land, the child will not only be killed but the family of the female that gave birth will go through the same punishment of being executed. Your grandfather came to meet me and explained his situation to me. He wanted to save the child, he wanted to save you and hide you somewhere safe. They couldn't take you to the human world for fear of being killed on the way to your father's land. So I decided to help your mother in a way no one would suspect foul play. We planned to put the baby you into a basket and make you float in the river till you reach the second riverbank to be saved by my disciples. That way, everyone would think we drowned the human child inside the river, while unknown to everyone that we are saving you. After everyone left, I took you with me deeper into the forest on the east side of the land closer to the human world. If we had gone to the forest located on the west side of the land, there's a possibility that we'll be spotted by a dark elf or vampire, so we didn't go that way. Your grandfather would often come to visit, and for 5 years before he died, he never told anyone about you, not even your mother, and it was all to protect you. After your grandfather died, I decided to trace the location of your father in the human world, but I failed. Your father was nowhere to be found. I didn't know his family, I didn't know his name, and I can't ask your mother or it will raise suspicions. But after you left the forest and miraculously turned into an elf, I don't know how you did it, but I know that you are a special child. So after long thought about it, I decided to tell your mother. And that's why I brought her here today." The wizard finalized his explanation and the lady beside him removed the veil that was used to cover her face. "Kevin, the child I named after his father. Is this really you?" the lady said. As soon as Lexa and Lena saw the face of the lady, they suddenly paid their respects. "Queen Evie, it's a great privilege to meet you." Lexa and Lena said at once. "Thank you, fellow ladies, thanks for being there for my son. I thought I had lost him to the river, but I'm more than happy to see that my son is alive and healthy." "I'm sorry, Kevin. I blame myself every day for letting go of your griping hands when you were a baby. I never meant to leave you, but I had to. I don't know what to do at that time. I was weak and unable to protect myself from being charmed by the sleeping spell. I'm sorry, Kevin. I know what I did was unforgivable. I don't deserve your forgiveness and I know that. But please find it in your heart to forgive me." Evelyn begged amid tears. Kevin stood up from his seat with tears in his eyes. This was the first time Lexa and Lena would see him cry. Why now? Why didn't you tell her before now? You think I can just accept the fact that she's my mother after all these years of knowing the truth?" Kevin said to the wizard. "I'm sorry, Kevin, I also feel this guilt within me, that's why I get angry anytime I see you sneak out of the forest to the mainland." The wizard replied. "Why wouldn't you get angry? You know the truth and instead of saying it, you kept it to yourself. Do you know that there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you? Don't you ever talk to me again." Kevin said before storming out of Lena's office. "Kevin, wait," Lexa said as she ran after Kevin. "Happy reading."